Hello everyone, today I bought a giant bag of peanuts to test how many Snickers bars I could make from it. And most importantly, we're gonna find out whether it's cheaper to make candy bars at home or just buy them at the supermarket. We have exactly 30 kilograms of peanuts. I bought raw, unprocessed peanuts in their shells because that's the most budget-friendly option. It costs only $80. Let's start with shelling the peanuts. Now we need to crack the shells to get the nuts themselves. You can even do this with your fingers because the shells are pretty brittle. We're beginning the mass shelling of the peanuts. And after just 40 minutes, I'm feeling pain in my fingers. It becomes clear this was a bad approach, so I decided to simplify the work with chopsticks. With them, I can press on the shell until a crack appears and then simply open it with my fingers. This is going to reduce the strain on my fingers. We're going to continue shelling. After another hour, I realized that this method was too slow. So we're going to change tactics and use a small board. With this, we're going to crack dozens of shells at once. This made the work much faster. Looking at the mountain of peanuts, I dread to think how long full shelling is going to take. Three days later, we're finished. Just look at how much empty shell we have. We don't need this, so it's gonna go in the trash. We're gonna gather it. And we're gonna take it out. The main result of our 3 days of work is the kernels themselves. But in a Snickers, they aren't used the way we have them now. The nuts are currently raw and have a thin red skin. So we're gonna solve these issues by roasting them. We're gonna spread the peanuts onto baking trays and distribute them evenly. All done. We're gonna send the first batch to roast in the oven for about 15 minutes. Then we're gonna pour the roasted peanuts on the opposite side of the table. After roasting, they've developed that classic nutty aroma. Every single peanut must go through the oven. And our roasting is complete. After this stage, the red skins come off the nuts very easily. To speed up the skinning process, we're gonna pull the peanuts to the edge of the table, we're gonna take a mesh bag, and we're gonna put a portion of the peanuts inside. Then we're gonna fold the edge over and start rubbing the peanuts together. The skins are gonna separate and fall out through the mesh holes. Then we're gonna pour the now clean peanuts into a container. Everything is ready, but for final filtration, we're gonna pass the peanuts through a powerful stream of air to get rid of any remaining skin fragments. Finally, after 4 days of work, I have perfect peanuts for making Snickers. Initially, there were 30 kilograms. Let's weigh them now and see how the weight changed after processing. The net weight, excluding the container, is 17 kilograms. But besides the peanuts themselves, Snickers also uses peanut butter. So to make this, we're gonna send 4 kilograms of peanuts into the large blade blender. We're gonna cover it with the lid and blend them. In 5 minutes, the blender did all it could. But this is still crumbs, it's not butter. So next, we're gonna need a melanger. We're gonna turn it on, and using a spoon, we're gonna gradually load the peanut crumbs into the machine. All done. The heavy stone rollers grind the peanut crumbs against a stone base, and with each hour, it becomes more and more paste-like. A good result takes 12 hours. In the end, we get perfect peanut butter. Now we can turn off the melanger and pour the peanut butter into a bowl. We managed to fill it completely. And finally, the peanut preparation is complete. But peanuts make up only 30% of a Snickers. Another 20% is caramel, 35% is nougat, and 15% is chocolate. So I bought a lot of other ingredients. Including the nuts, I've already spent $550. We're gonna start making Snickers with the peanut caramel layer. And for this, we need a whole bucket of corn syrup. We're going to open it up and scoop out some for the first batch. Next, of course, we need sugar. We're gonna pour this into a saucepan, add a drop of water, and then we can put the saucepan on the stove. Now be sure to use a thermometer to control the temperature. While the caramel is cooking, our task is to measure the needed amount of heavy cream and peanut butter. We need to mix the whole mass. Now when the caramel reaches the right temperature, we're gonna pour it in. Also, we're going to scoop a portion of peanuts and add them to the saucepan. Now all that's left is to stir everything. Now we can take it off the stove, and next we're going to take a mold and fill it halfway with the peanut caramel mixture. By the end of filling the molds, the caramel has cooled down, sticking to the spoon, and this becomes pure torture. Most importantly, it's impossible to dose the amount of caramel. This makes the caramel layer uneven in thickness. So we decided to use a different mold. We're gonna line it with parchment paper and pour in the hot caramel. We're going to spread it evenly with a spatula, creating a uniform layer exactly as thick as an original Snickers. This is an excellent result. To set up a Snickers production line, we need many of these molds. At the first stage, I measured out 4 portions of ingredients at once. Then I cooked the caramel on all 4 burners. Meanwhile, a second person is measuring out 4 portions of cream and peanut butter. When the caramel is almost ready, we're going to take the preparations and pour them into the saucepans. I also add peanuts, and while stirring, I'm going to bring the caramel to perfection. At the same time, 2 more people are going to take the molds and line them with parchment paper. I take the finished caramel off the stove and distribute it into the molds. Everything is calculated in advance so that 1 saucepan of caramel is enough for 1 mold. Now all that's left is to spread it. All done. Now we just need to repeat this many, many times. We managed to fill exactly 60 molds. This took another full day. Next, we're going to move on to making the nougat. For this, we're going to need dried egg white. Unlike regular eggs, we don't need to discard the yolks here, so we save on raw materials. We put 1 teaspoon of powder into measuring cups. And then we add the needed portion of water. And all that's left is to mix it. Effectively, we have restored the egg white to its original form, and we're going to pour it into the mixers to whip. Now we're going to add sugar and increase the mixer speed. We need a stiff foam. Then we're going to cook 4 portions of caramel and pour it in a thin stream into the egg white while continuing to whip them. Until the nougat thickens. Now, in an original Snickers, the nougat isn't white, but it's beige due to the addition of peanut butter. We have exactly half a bowl left. We need to add just 1 tablespoon to each portion of nougat. After that, the nougat is ready. We're going to layer it on top of the caramel layer, and then we're going to cover it with parchment paper and evenly distribute the nougat over the entire area of the mold using a rolling pin. All done. The 2 filling layers are stuck together. But it turns out that regular mixers can't handle such a load, and they break very quickly. So we're going to use 2 larger mixers. In one go, we still get the same 4 portions of nougat. So now we start the production line again. Two days later, we ran out of peanut butter, but it was enough to fill absolutely all the molds with nougat. So the calculations were correct. Now each mold needs to be covered with plastic wrap so the nougat doesn't absorb moisture from the air. The first mold is wrapped, only 59 more to go. Before the cutting stage, the filling needs to be cooled, so we're going to put it in the fridge. We filled the fridge to capacity, and we can close the door. Now we're going to leave it to cool for 12 hours. While the filling is cooling, we're going to prepare for the cutting stage and make a mold with guides for the knife. We simply cut the edges at the necessary spots. All done. The filling is cooled down, so now we can move on to the cutting. We're going to remove the plastic wrap, take out the filling together with the parchment paper, and transfer it to our special mold with guides. Now, using a long spatula, we can easily cut the filling into pieces the size of original Snickers. All done. The filling is perfectly cut into 32 segments. We cut the remaining filling slabs following the same principle. Next, we're going to take the filling out of the molds. We're going to turn it over and remove the parchment paper. And then we finally break the filling into the required pieces. And we get perfect Snicker blanks. Now we move on to the final stage, coating them with chocolate. I bought granulated milk chocolate, and it needs to be melted. For this, we're going to use a bain-marie, or a water bath. We're going to fill it with water. Essentially, it's a controlled water bath. We're going to set up a Gastronorm container and fill it with chocolate. Now we can turn on the heat. As the chocolate starts to melt, we need to speed up the process and stir it periodically with a spatula. And hour and a half later, the chocolate becomes liquid. That's exactly what we need. So we take a chilled Snickers blank, dip it into the chocolate, and submerge it slightly. Then we shake off the excess chocolate and transfer it to a parchment paper to set. On an original Snickers, there are patterns on top, so we're going to do something similar to that. After it sets, we're going to trim off all the uneven chocolate edges. And we put the perfect homemade Snickers on a tray. By the way, we're not going to throw away the chocolate trimmings. We're going to put them back into the bain-marie as all of the ingredients were calculated and bought, so we had just enough to be able to calculate the cost of a homemade Snickers. To speed up the process, 3 people are going to coat the bars with chocolate at once. After another 2 days of work, all the Snickers are finally coated in chocolate. A full 10 days have passed since we started shelling the peanuts. This no longer felt like home cooking, it was more like industrial production. In total, from the 30-kilogram bag of peanuts, we managed to make exactly 1,840 Snickers. But before we compare their price to store-bought bars, we need to make packaging, as it's not free. We printed exactly 1,840 wrappers and bought 4 packs of staples for the stapler. This cost us another $110. We're going to take the first label and wrap it around the homemade Snickers, and then secure the label with a stapler. And of course, trim the edges with decorative scissors. The result is packaging that could be mistaken for the original. We're going to simply stack the wrapped Snickers on the table. We still have 1,839 Snickers left to wrap. Our production line of 5 people worked for another full day to do this. In total, 11 days later, the homemade Snickers are completely ready and wrapped. Just look at how many there are. In total, our expenses for making the Snickers, including packaging, came to $660. At first glance, it's hard to believe all this was made in a home kitchen. It remains to answer the most important question: is the homemade Snickers cheaper than the store-bought one, or was it all for nothing? Attention! Our Snickers is twice as cheap as the store-bought one and looks almost identical. So yes, making Snickers at home is profitable if you have 11 extra days. But besides the price, we also need to compare the taste. So we're going to try the homemade Snickers, a tasty peanut candy bar. Let's immediately compare it with the original. The store-bought one is slightly more balanced due to the addition of salt, but otherwise the taste is identical, and the consistency of the filling is the same, that signature stretchy caramel. We found out everything we wanted, but you're probably curious about the fate of all these candy bars, since there are 460,000 calories here, and we definitely can't eat all of them ourselves. So we gathered all the Snickers into 3 huge containers. We decided to give the first container to the children from a dance group. They were incredibly happy about it. Everyone who tried our Snickers praised the taste. We left the second container of Snickers right in the stairwell so that every neighbor could take a bar. The children were especially happy about this. And the third and final container of Snickers we left